I've played tons of games from a variety of different genres across multiple platforms, and I enjoy every single second of it, thanks to the wonderful community that we've created together. Now, it has been a while since I've done an Every Games Ever episode, mostly because I've been waiting to do a NES accessory video with Aria, but she went to my grandparents for the summer, so kinda got stuck in limbo. But a long time ago, almost a year ago, OG Rex suggested a series that revolved around games based on cartoons and TV shows. Now, out of all of those games, it was very difficult to make a top 10 and a worst 10, so I decided to meet everybody halfway, and today we're going to be taking a look at every single video game on the NES inspired by TV game shows. Should be fun. Let's begin. Jeopardy is a massively important game show to me. In fact, I think it's one of the earliest game shows I remember. My grandfather was big on watching them. Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, The Price is Right, and he had really badass cable so we could watch Press Your Luck, tons of shows from the era. You get the idea. Jeopardy itself first started in 1964 and was originally hosted by Art Fleming, but the one host that made it truly have an identity was Alex Trebek, and I'm really sad that he passed away, but that's life. Fuck cancer. This game is great though, it's from the GameTech publishing era, and you'll notice that a lot of the games on this list were done by GameTech and developed by Rare. True story. It's your run-of-the-mill Jeopardy game, you answer the question and you're good to go. This is a solid game, and I think you'll like it. Wheel of Fortune, now that's a show. I remember watching the hell out of this as a kid, and for many people you might recall Chuck Woolery being the host, but I remember Pat Sajak being the host. It's so cool to think that the host of a game show becomes the identity of the show. Price is Right will always be Bob Barker to me, just as Whose Line Is It Anyway will always be Drew Carey to me. But Wheel of Fortune, again from Rare and GameTech, is a game where you spin the wheel and try to guess the letters on the board. You can guess consonants, but you have to buy vowels. On the wheel, there are point wedges, but also a bankrupt and miss a turn wedges as well. If you manage to guess the word, you can bank your money, no more no less. This show has always been fundamentally fucking stupid to me. Imagine tic-tac-toe, but slower, louder, and filled with washed-up sitcom stars who haven't read a script since the Reagan administration. It's basically 9 F-list stars trapped in boxes like they were on a clearance sale, and the aim of the game is to get 3 in a row. Now, how do we do that? Well, you pick your square and the host would ask a question. The celebrity in the square would respond, and you would have to guess if the celebrity's guess was right or wrong. And if you were right in your judgment, you could claim that square. For example, alright, the question is, what's the capital of France? Oh geez, I don't know. What day of the week is it? In short, Hollywood Squares was the perfect show for when you wanted trivia but also wanted to completely lose faith in the education system and the concept of celebrities all at once. And that notion 100% translated to the NES version. I actually hate this game. You're going to see a few different versions of Jeopardy games, usually that aligns with different age groups. For Jeopardy in particular, one of the things that irritated me about it is that it was so locked up into pop culture at the time, so you needed to know things from that era, and there's nothing we can do to change that. But what you could do is buy Junior Edition, which was aimed for the age demographic of 7 and up. It's still hard, but it is fun, and that's all that matters to me and the kids. It's not a game you'll spend hours playing, but it's one that passes the time. On the same page, if you found that the clues for Wheel of Fortune are kind of tough, there was an additional version of Wheel of Fortune that was released. Much like Jeopardy, this is aimed for a younger demographic. Just to point out, when I say culture of the era, I mean like you'll have questions that are asked that have stuff to do with actors or TV shows or things that most people would only know if you were alive during that time, right? With the Junior Editions, it is easier, but to be fair, I do still struggle with this because you have to imagine you're a kid of the era. Those questions are tuned to that. You remember Concentration? It's a child's game, one where you flip over cards and try to match a pair, and if you don't, your turn ends, but your opponent now knows what cards those were, and can use that as a strategy if they have a good memory. Originally, this game was played with playing cards, but the themes expanded throughout the years. My personal version as a kid was Disney characters, and I played that all the time with my grandmother. That idea was turned into a show in 1958 where you would try to match numbers or objects. And if you matched it, you would reveal a part of a rebus puzzle. Rebus puzzles being complex rewritings of statements using objects or something to that effect, like this, top secret, or fading away. That was translated directly into the NES, and to be honest, it's one of the cooler games that I've played. This is a game from my era. Well, it was relevant in my era. Double Dare actually originated in the late 80s as Super Sloppy Double Dare, hosted by Mark Summers. It was syndicated in the 90s if I recall, but Family Double Dare was a thing as well. The whole gimmick of the game is that two teams compete head-to-head to answer trivia questions, of which a majority of were stupid easy. But if you missed it, the other players received the points. Now where it gets interesting is that you could dare the other team to answer it, effectively gambling on whether or not they'll get it right, and if they do, they got the points, but if they didn't, you got the points. But it goes even further than that. They can double dare you, and then the spotlight is back on you. Answer the question correctly, get it wrong, or take on a physical challenge, which was usually disgusting, but that's what Nickelodeon was all about back then. Green Bukake slime! The game itself is kind of shit. I mean, it's 50% shit, the trivia part is programmed well, but the physical challenge aspect is really wonky, and that's a big deal to me. Another Wheel of Fortune, this time focusing primarily on the family demographic, meaning that the clues we would have to answer go from kids to adults, in a way which families could enjoy the game together. If it isn't apparent by now, GameTech and Rare reskinned this game 3 times, and there is a 4th one, but it's slightly different. To be honest though, I prefer this trilogy of skins over the Anniversary Edition. If you want to play an older Wheel of Fortune that works for the entire family, this is the one to play. Win, Lose, or Draw is a game that quite literally describes verbatim in the title what the game show is about. Imagine Pictionary if it was a game show. In fact, that's probably what Burt Reynolds was thinking when he decided to create it. There were 2 teams with 3 people, 2 of which had celebrities with the same social relevance as Hollywood squares. You would sit on a couch in a room modeled after Bert's Puss Mansion's living room, and you would guess what was being drawn. Now, this was ported to the NES in 1989, and it was done courtesy of High-Tech Expressions. Well, it was developed by RSP, but their contribution to the video game industry was about as significant as a wet napkin in a house fire. They didn't do shit. This is a rough game from a publisher that never really understood the demographics their products were aimed for, and it really shows. Speaking of high-tech expressions, they decided to take advantage of this cool new hip TV show called Remote Control on this hip new TV channel known as Music TV, or MTV for short, a channel that used to actually show music videos, but now bounces on Rob Dyrdek's dick like an overpaid hooker, playing non-stop syndicated marathons of ridiculousness. Remote Control was your basic pop culture game show that ran for 5 seasons, and it was one of the first, if not the first, non-music related shows on the channel, which is the equivalent of a vegan restaurant opening up with a steak theme. And yet again, High-Tech Expressions, never one to miss an opportunity to completely misunderstand their audience, brought this to the NES. It's a soulless trivia game that really isn't that great. We already talked about Jeopardy, and we'll discuss it again in the future, but this particular game was released in 1990 and just so happened to exist during the time of the 25th anniversary for Jeopardy, which is awesome. That's a great marketing move, and it was done by people who showed they were capable of doing it. GameTech was the publisher, Rare was the developer. It's basically the same game, but the questions were slightly more modern as the ages of the audience shifted forward as we rolled into the 90s. If you ever wanted to know what it was to witness pure, unfiltered 90s testosterone being shot straight into your brain, then look no further than American Gladiators. Every episode was stacked to the core with spandex, ego, and badass athletes like Laser, Blaze, even Turbo. If you like this show, just know your mom wanted to fuck Malibu and your dad wanted a night with Zap. Me personally, I was big on Lace. Then they created an NES game, which was programmed by someone who heard of the show through a game of telephone. The controls are as stiff as Gemini as he beats you over the head with a large Q-tip, and the graphics look like they were created with a crayon. But the show was awesome, and the fact that they managed to translate that to the NES in some capacity is kind of cool, but I don't like the game. Out of every single show I've mentioned today, this is the one I don't remember. And bear in mind, I watched a lot of TV shows growing up. I was impartial to Shop Till You Drop, but apparently this was a show on Fox. I genuinely don't remember it. What about you? Feel free to let me know down in the comment section below. I did ask a few friends, and they told me Funhouse was basically Fox's take on Double Dare. There was trivia, unhinged physical challenges, and the ultimate challenge in the show was taking on the Funhouse, where kids could sprint through it and collect shit with zero regard for the safety of the child. The game itself was a relatively early game from Real Time Associates, a company that I absolutely loathe. I haven't played this one yet, but I am interested in seeing how it is in comparison to Double Dare. Family Feud! Now this is a show my grandfather loved to watch, mostly because he would get a genuine kick at how close Richard Dawson came to constantly being handed a sexual harassment lawsuit every time he kissed your daughter's cheek with a tongue out. To be honest, most versions of this game, whether it was on the Super Nintendo, 3DO, Genesis, they weren't bad because they were simple. Basically, in the show, you have two opposing teams. They get asked something that was surveyed to a group of people, and your job is to clear the board by guessing what people said. For example, name something you do when you're bored at work. Some people might say pretend to work, daydream, check your phone, logical answers. But sometimes people say off the wall shit like, beat my meat! And then Steve Harvey would look at the camera like a biblically accurate angel manifested in the audience, and everyone laughs. Now the trouble with this game is that it is very much in tune with the sociological standards of society at the time. So what we do now as a society is dramatically different than it was in the late 80s. A question like, name something you would see in a school would be an apple, a teacher, a textbook, whereas now it would be laptop, smartboard, or AR-15, right? Times have changed. This game is fun though, and I do recommend that you check it out. Well, we're down to the last two, and they both unfortunately are late-era NES releases that showed that Game Tech was slowly losing control over their ability to publish games well on the NES. And it's likely because they moved away from Rare, and to be fair, Rare had a badass deal with Nintendo at this point, so why bother with Game Tech? It's not like they were moving them forward, and honestly, if you look at Game Tech's modern library, they fell off hard. Now, where previous games were developed by Rare, Super Jeopardy was designed by Imagineering, which was an internal development studio from Absolute Entertainment, aka the second company David Crane created after he got tired of Activision shit, which was created when he was tired of Atari shit. David Crane just really doesn't like taking shit from anyone. The game plays well though, it just looks really weird because all the characters look like they're on some new street drug and it's really distracting. And here it is, the final game show based game on the NES. And it's the Wheel of Fortune. Want to guess who published it? That's right, Game Tech. Little trivia for you, the final game that Game Tech ever published, Jeopardy on the Nintendo 64. It's like they had a perpetual license to make games that involved it. Might be worth looking into one day. After the bullshit that was Super Jeopardy, Game Tech reached out to a different studio. This time it was Imagitech Design, who was a relatively undercard game studio from the UK, and none of their games stood out to me. And you would think that with a new company doing the development, they would make it look better. After all, this game looked amazing on DOS, but no. It kind of looks like they yoinked the source code from Super Jeopardy and just plopped the characters behind the wheel. It still carries that Game Tech aesthetic of the late 80s, and the game serves its purpose, but again, it looks really fucking dumb. And that's it for today's episode. What did you think of this list? Are there any game show games that you feel are the best? Feel free to let us know down in the comment section below. Who knows, maybe you'll share a memory with someone else in the community. Speaking of our community, if you made it to the end of this episode, you're already home with us. We're a gathering of video game enthusiasts that love to remember when life was just a little bit easier to live, and if you align with that, feel free to subscribe. Finally, the single most important thing you can do for me is to hit that thumbs up button, as it directly aligns with the visibility of the videos and the projects that I work on every single day. As always, from my family to your family, good energy, good vibes. Fortefyre out.